you today, Shelley?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming down. I know I've asked a few people, just to share some experiences they've had with Myers-Briggs or how they incorporate the tool in everyday work. So I appreciate you taking the time out and sharing your thoughts.
Absolutely.
So now I asked you to take a look at the judging and perceiving function,
Right.
or dichotomy, if you will. And do you have an idea of what that's about?
A little bit. I'm not a Myers-Briggs expert, but to my understanding, people who prefer judging like to have more scheduled, structured, close-ended tasks, and people that like perceiving or who prefer perceiving like a little bit more go-with-the-flow approach, less scheduled, more time to just kind of let things evolve and see what happens.
Okay, great. And then where does your preference lie between those two?
Perceiving.
Perceiving. Okay. So what do you do in your work day on a day-to-day basis that helps energize you towards that perceiving side?
Well, in my job, I have a lot of meetings, but I try to set up my calendar so that I don't have back-to-back meetings all day long.
Right.
So I try to make sure that I've got time for things that come up, and some time to kind of be a little bit more loose and just do what needs to be done in the moment instead of always knowing that I have to run to another meeting. That works pretty well.
Okay, so knowing that you know there's a lot of meetings coming into play, you're like, I gotta schedule some buffer time just to make sure that I touch people I need to touch in between those sessions.
Yep, absolutely. I try not to really just block time on my calendar, but every once in a while I need to do that if it's really busy.
Okay, well that's good to know. Now, of course, there are times where you're going to do your opposite preference, and for you, that's the judging function. So what do you do when you need to do more of the judging function during the day? How do you rebalance yourself at the end of the day?
Well, a good example of a time that I need to do more judging is at performance review time. So there are a lot of timelines and deadlines that are set around that function that I don't have any control about. So I have to have them all into HR in a certain span of time. I've got to deliver them to employees in a certain span of time, that kind of thing. I have to write them all within a certain span of time. So what I try to do is, when I'm actually delivering them, not deliver any more than, say, 3 in a day, so that there leaves time for whatever might come up in those conversations, so that I can work with that. And then when it comes to actually writing the performance reviews, I usually do it from home. And it's the only time of the year that I do any working from home. And the reason why I do it is because I don't have any control over the structure of the review or really what needs to go in it or when it's due. But I could at least have control over the environment, or I guess I could have a lack of control over the environment. That sounds weird, but if I feel like, if I feel like I want to work at the table, I can do that. Or if I want to work sitting on the couch, I can do that. Or it allows me a little bit of lack of structure in a structured process.
Okay, very interesting. So you are definitely balancing yourself between those two in there. So of course there, are times where we need more ideas, and we need to make sure we capture a different perspective, because that produces a better product or idea. So what do you do in your, whether it's a decision-making process or just your overall day-to-day, how do you incorporate the opposite preference for you to make the biggest impact?
One of the ways that I can think of it that really comes up is in project work. So projects, by their very nature, usually require a fair amount of structure and regimentation and have deliverable deadlines. And I know that if I'm involved in a project, I had better be purposeful about working with other people in that project that have judging as a preference, because I need to, my sort of go-with-the-flow nature needs to be mitigated a little bit by somebody who will be watching the structure. And someone who will be saying, okay, now, for example, in this meeting we said we were going to get this accomplished. We've now had 2 meetings and we still haven't gotten it accomplished. Our deliverable is this date. What are we going to do? So it helps get me back on track to do that. So I try to be really purposeful about not picking people that have that same preferences that I do to be on projects.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because you're leveraging both strengths in that process. you've got to come up with innovation, creative ideas, be open to how things might change and flow with new information coming through. But you also need to follow down that structured, scheduled path to make sure you're getting the project done on time.
Absolutely.
So great. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out today to
Sure.
share some insights on how you utilize the Myers-Briggs tool.
Sure, my pleasure. I think it's pretty useful information.
Great. Thank you so much.